I said yes to everything for a month. This is what happened. Okay, hear me out. I've been on Reddit for a while now, but this story is gonna be a first. I don't know if this is funny or just plain absurd, but I need to get this off my chest before I explode. It all started about a month ago. I'm an introvert. The kind of person who spends hours binge-watching YouTube videos and pretending I'm okay with not having a social life. I'm used to my routine, which is just me, my couch, and an unhealthy amount of snacks. I get that not everyone is the life of the party, but I'm content, you know. Well, all that changed when my friend Ryan, who's basically the opposite of me, he's loud, spontaneous, and always dragging me into something, bet me $3,000 that I wouldn't last a month if I said yes to everything. No exceptions. Like, literally everything. From meeting random strangers to weird, off-the-wall requests, I had to agree to all of it. Ryan, dude, you've got to get out of your comfort zone. This'll be the best thing for you. Think about it, saying yes to anything, just imagine the adventures. And I, being the idiot that I am, decided to take him up on the challenge. After all, I'm not gonna back down from a bet, especially when $3,000 is on the line. I didn't think it'd be that bad, but oh man, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. First day wasn't too crazy. Ryan had me meet him at a cafe to start things off, but then it quickly escalated. He's sitting there, sipping his coffee like some sort of twisted life coach, telling me to say yes to literally everyone who walks in the door. The barista offers me a free sample of their new smoothie. Yes, I say, even though it looks like green slime in a cup. A random lady asks if I'll help her carry some groceries to her car. Yes, I say, trying not to think about how awkward this is. I feel my social anxiety bubbling up. But hey, no backing out, right? It's just the first day. What could go wrong? By the time the evening rolled around, I was already exhausted. Saying yes is like doing a workout for your social muscles, only it's way more awkward. I didn't even want to get into the part where a guy asked me to help him move a couch into his apartment. I'd never seen this guy in my life. But it was only day one. Ryan was grinning the whole time, like he knew something I didn't. And let me tell you, he absolutely did. Day two. I woke up the next morning with a feeling of dread. It wasn't even 9 a.m., and I was already mentally preparing myself for the chaos that awaited. Ryan had texted me last night with the usual, remember, say yes to everything message, like I could forget after what happened yesterday. I decided to ease into it, thinking it'd be better if I started slow, but nope. The universe had other plans. First, I went for my morning coffee, thinking I'd have a chill, normal start to the day. But then, as I was waiting in line, the guy in front of me turns around and asks if I want to go play mini-golf with him and his friends. I've never seen this dude in my life. He's wearing a Life's a Beach t-shirt and has a weirdly loud laugh. In any normal situation, I'd just awkwardly stare at my shoes and pretend I didn't hear him. But today I'm saying yes. Sure, I say, as if I've been invited to the most casual game of mini-golf with a random stranger. What the hell was I doing? But hey, $3,000 on the line, right? Mini-golf with a group of strangers who are all way more enthusiastic about life than I'll ever be was. An experience. They kept trying to get me to get in the zone by doing weird pre-putt dances and shouting things like, let's get it. And you've got this, bro. I wanted to crawl into a hole and never come out, but hey, I didn't want to lose the bet. The most absurd part, I was actually having fun by the end. I'd never admit it to Ryan, but I might have actually smiled a few times. It was a weird feeling. Day 5. The next few days were a blur of bizarre requests, awkward encounters, and weirdly wholesome moments. I didn't even know what to expect anymore. It started to feel like the universe was testing me. For instance, on day 3, I said yes to helping a guy who was trying to propose to his girlfriend. I've never seen this dude before, and he just randomly approached me in the park, asking if I could help him set up the proposal. The guy was so nervous, I almost felt like I was doing it for him. Long story short, I ended up holding a giant cardboard heart in the middle of the park while he knelt down, looking like a nervous wreck. And of course, she said yes. It was sweet, I guess, but the awkwardness of holding a giant heart in the middle of a public park while trying not to draw attention to myself, unmatched. The crazier part was what happened after that. The proposal crowd, which I didn't even realize was a crowd, started clapping and congratulating me for being such a great friend to the couple. I had no idea who any of these people were. They treated me like I was the best man or something. I spent the next 20 minutes awkwardly posing for pictures with strangers who thought I was part of the wedding. If someone had asked me to leave at that point, I would have sprinted away. But hey, I was in the moment, and my inner introvert was screaming. Day 6. I almost thought about quitting on day 6. I didn't have the energy anymore, but Ryan was relentless. He kept sending me texts like, "You're doing great, keep it up," as if I was some kind of social experiment for his own amusement. Then something insane happened. At around 9 p.m., I was walking home when a guy pulls up next to me in his car and asks if I want to come with him to his band's practice session. Apparently, they were looking for a new sound and needed someone to vibe with the band. I looked at him like he was speaking a different language, but I said yes, because, well, I couldn't back out now. Fast forward 30 minutes, and I'm sitting in a basement, surrounded by guys with long hair, wearing band tees and tuning guitars. They start playing the weirdest, most experimental music I've ever heard. It sounded like a mix of metal and elevator music, and they kept asking me what I thought. I had absolutely no idea what to say. So in true I'm trying not to die of awkwardness fashion, I just nodded and gave them a thumbs up after every song. At some point, they told me I was vibing harder than anyone else, and I had no idea whether to be flattered or terrified. I just kept going along with it, because what was I supposed to do? By the end of the night, they insisted I sing something with them, which obviously turned into a disaster. Let's just say I don't have the voice for heavy metal, and it probably sounded like someone was strangling a cat. But hey, I'm pretty sure they all had a blast, and I managed to avoid getting kicked out, so win. Day 7. Right, I'm gonna be real with you. At this point, I was seriously questioning my life choices. Ryan had texted me the night before, "Don't forget the whole yes to everything thing, buddy." Like I could just forget about the mental toll this was taking on me. It was supposed to be a fun little social experiment, but I was starting to feel like I was slowly losing my mind. Day began innocuously enough. I was walking to the grocery store, my thoughts firmly on what to buy for lunch. I was half in autopilot mode when a woman came up to me out of nowhere, holding a small dog in her arms. The dog looked like a stuffed animal. It was so fluffy, I could barely see its face. She smiled sweetly and asked if I'd be willing to take her dog for a walk while she went into the store for a quick errand. Now, if you know anything about me, you know I have a deep, almost irrational fear of small animals. I don't trust them, especially ones that look like they might bite my face off. But of course, I couldn't say no. Sure, I said, even though every fiber of my being screamed, "Run, you fool." So there I was, standing outside a grocery store with this tiny, ferocious-looking fluffball, trying not to have a panic attack. I could barely hold onto the leash without it slipping out of my hands. Every time the dog saw a squirrel or another dog, it nearly pulled my arm out of its socket, barking like it was going to bring the apocalypse with every step. I felt like I was one wrong move away from becoming the headline of a very odd news article. Man gets mauled by adorable dog while trying to be nice. I finally made it around the block and handed the dog back to its owner. She thanked me profusely, but I could barely stop shaking. I didn't even have the guts to tell Ryan about this one. I was too embarrassed to admit that I was now afraid of small, fluffy creatures. But hey, I didn't back out, right? So that's a win. Day 9. Okay, this one is the turning point. I was officially getting sick of saying yes. I was exhausted. I didn't even have time to process what had been happening to me. Ryan kept pushing me to go bigger and bigger with the yes challenges, like he was testing my limits. It was 10 a.m., and I was walking to the post office when some dude wearing a tie-dye shirt approached me with this look on his face. His eyes were wild, like he'd just come off a week-long acid trip, and he asked if I wanted to join him in his artistic revolution. I had no idea what that even meant, but his excitement was contagious in the worst way. He handed me a paintbrush and told me to follow him. I felt like a deer in headlights. We ended up in a park, and suddenly there were 10 other people, all covered in paint, chanting something like "Art is life." It felt like I had stumbled into some weird cult, and now I was part of it. They started painting random things, including park benches, trash cans, and the pavement. Of course, I was immediately handed a bucket of bright blue paint and told to make my mark. I stood there, paintbrush in hand, trying to figure out how the hell I ended up here. I didn't even know how to paint. I started making random swirls, trying to fit in, but honestly, I felt like I was painting a giant blue blob on the pavement. Everyone else was so into it, shouting random motivational quotes like, "Don't think, just paint," while I was silently screaming on the inside, wondering how the hell I was going to get out of this without looking like an idiot. Half an hour later, I was covered in blue paint, standing in the middle of a public park with no clear exit strategy. Was I really just going to accept that this was my life now? I was so close to running away, but I looked over at Ryan's text that came in just then. "Remember, you said yes to everything. Stay strong." I didn't know if I wanted to punch him or thank him at that point, but I stuck it out. By the end of the session, we had covered a chunk of the park in chaotic paint. Some of it was kind of cool, and I couldn't deny that the experience felt somewhat liberating. But damn, I was ready for it to be over. Day 12. By this point, I was starting to have full-on existential crises. I kept asking myself, what am I doing with my life? Just when I thought I couldn't take any more absurdity, Ryan hit me with his most insane challenge yet. "Go to a random bar," he said, "and ask if they need someone to sing karaoke." Now listen, if there's one thing I absolutely will never do, it's sing in front of people. My vocal range is somewhere between a dying cat and a foghorn. I had my doubts, serious doubts. But no, I couldn't back down now. The bet was on. $3,000 was at stake, and I was already too deep. So I walked into a random dive bar, and before I even had a chance to scope out the situation, I asked the bartender if they needed someone to sing. She looked at me like I had two heads. I couldn't blame her. "Do you want to sing karaoke?" she asked. I could feel my soul leaving my body as I nodded. I was about to ruin my life, but hey, at least I could say I followed through, right? She handed me the mic, and I walked up to the stage where a few tipsy people were already singing some country ballad. My hands were shaking, and I could feel my stomach churning. My song, "I Will Survive." You know, the classic. I didn't think I could mess this one up. But I did. Oh, I did. I butchered the song so badly that halfway through, people started looking at each other, unsure whether they should laugh or cry. I was hitting the wrong notes, missing entire lyrics, and generally making the kind of noise that would have had anyone within a 10-mile radius covering their ears. By the time I finished, the crowd was mostly just staring at me, unsure whether they'd been entertained or scarred for life. I don't know how I managed to walk off that stage without spontaneously combusting. I was never doing karaoke again. Day 15. Safe to say I was officially running on fumes. The whole saying yes thing was no longer a fun social experiment. It had turned into something much darker, something that gnawed at me every day. I'd learned a few things about myself, mostly that I hate social interactions and my ability to avoid them is a superpower. But of course, I couldn't back out now. $3,000 was still dangling in front of me like a golden carrot, and Ryan was sending me daily texts reminding me to embrace the chaos. Great advice, Ryan, if you're a sadistic overlord. This particular day, I was dreading going out. I didn't even want to leave the house. But then, the universe sent me the worst thing it could, a knock on my door. I opened it to find a random dude standing there, holding a clipboard. He looked like he had just escaped from a door-to-door sales job, and the sheer desperation in his eyes told me that whatever he was selling wasn't going to be pretty. "Hi, sir," he said, wearing an unnervingly wide smile. "Would you like to donate to our local food bank today? It's for a great cause." Now, I'm not against donating to charities. I'm actually a decent human being. But there was something about his whole vibe, his too bright smile, the sweat on his brow, and the fact that I had no idea who this guy was that made me feel uneasy. Like, why was he at my door of all places? It felt wrong. This was one of those situations where my instincts were telling me, do not engage, do not say yes. But guess what? I didn't listen. I agreed to donate. I handed him $20, fully aware that I'd probably never see that money again. He gave me a brochure and walked away, leaving me standing in my doorway, questioning every decision I'd ever made. Was that a scam? Did I just fall into some pyramid scheme? Should I have asked him why he was sweating so much? I was too tired to care anymore. My yes muscle was giving out, but I pushed forward. Day 17. Ryan had the audacity to challenge me with something even crazier this time. He sent me a message. "I dare you to say yes to anything that happens today, no matter how weird." The day started off innocently enough. I was walking through the park, minding my own business, when I was approached by a person dressed as a giant inflatable hot dog. I'm talking full-on hot dog suit, bun, sausage, mustard, and all. Without even thinking, I said, "Sure," when they asked if I wanted to take a selfie with them. The absurdity of this whole thing didn't really hit me until I was standing there in the middle of the park, smiling next to a giant, inflatable hot dog. People were taking pictures of me, like I was some kind of oddball celebrity. I don't know if I should have been proud or just deeply disturbed. Either way, the whole scene was a spectacle, and I couldn't wait for it to end. But of course it didn't. The hot dog person handed me the phone and asked if I wanted to post the selfie on their Instagram account. What could I do? I said yes, of course. At that point, I was just too tired to care about how ridiculous this all was. Day 18. I had started to wonder if I had become some kind of puppet for the universe. I was saying yes to everything, too much of everything, and it was beginning to feel like I was being used for entertainment. Every corner I turned, someone else was there with a request. I was like a walking yes man, and no matter how many times I told myself I was done with it, I still went along with it. This day was a low point. I was at the grocery store, buying the most boring things, like, seriously, who gets excited about bread and eggs? When a woman approached me asking if I'd participate in a focus group for a new line of cleaning products. My first instinct was to say no. I'd done enough weird stuff for one day, but she was already pulling out a clipboard, and I didn't have the strength to argue. I followed her to this tiny back room behind the store, and there I was, sitting with 5 other strangers, sniffing different cleaning sprays and pretending like I had any idea what the difference was between fresh lemon breeze and tropical rainfall. The whole time, I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. I tried my best to offer fake enthusiasm for cleaning products that smelled like plastic and regret, but inside I was screaming. I had been to mini-golf, helped with proposals, and painted park benches, but this was the worst, the most soul-sucking experience of my life. I honestly couldn't remember if I was supposed to be giving feedback on the product or just trying to escape. Finally, after an hour, I walked out, clutching a coupon for a free bottle of tropical rainfall, cleaner like it was some sort of consolation prize. Day 21. I was so close to the end, but every fiber of my being was begging for it to stop. I I had already said yes to so much that I wasn't sure if there was any normal left in my life. Then came the final straw. I had just finished work for the day and was heading home when I ran into a guy dressed as a mime. He was sitting on a bench, pretending to be stuck in an invisible box, and it was honestly one of the most cringeworthy performances I had ever witnessed. But as he finished, he stood up and held out his hands, miming like he wanted me to join in. I stood there for a solid 30 seconds, frozen in place, debating whether or not I should say yes. This was the moment, the one that would define the rest of the challenge. I could either walk away and call it quits or embrace the absurdity one last time. In a final act of complete surrender, I nodded and said, "All right, let's do it." I spent the next 20 minutes pretending to be trapped in an invisible box with a mime in the middle of the street. People watched. Some laughed. Some stared in complete confusion. I don't know if I've ever been more embarrassed in my life, but I stuck it out, because I had no choice. Day 23. I'm starting to feel like this whole yes thing is now some kind of cruel joke. I'm in over my head, and no matter how many times I tell myself to just say no for once, I can't. The bet, the pressure, it's all too much now. This day started off normal. I was walking through the city, just trying to get to the gym so I could at least feel some semblance of normalcy. But as I was passing a crowded cafe, a guy in a suit approached me with a camera crew. He looked like he had just stepped out of an infomercial. "Hey, you look like someone who loves a good challenge," he says with a grin. "Do you want to be on a TV game show right now?" I stared at him, processing his words. I thought about all the ways this could go wrong, all the ways it could ruin me. This could be some scam where I ended up with a free blender but a broken reputation. But of course, I couldn't say no. I was in too deep. So there I was, minutes later, standing in front of a live audience on a random street corner with cameras pointed at me. The game was simple. I had to answer rapid-fire trivia questions. Easy, right? Wrong. The questions were absurd. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? What's the capital of Mars? If you could be any fruit, what fruit would you be and why? I was trying my best to keep a straight face, but inside I was dying. I kept thinking, what happened to my life? Why had I agreed to do this? By the end, I didn't win any prizes, but I did get a ridiculous amount of attention from strangers who thought I was some kind of celebrity. The game show was over, but the trauma stayed with me. It was like I was trapped in this endless loop of absurdity, and there was no escape. Day 25. There was a brief moment during day 25 when I genuinely considered quitting. I was at a bar, sitting in a quiet corner, sipping on a drink, when a guy walked up to me. He looked like he'd just rolled out of an office meeting and was trying way too hard to be cool. "Hey man," he said, his voice booming. "Wanna come with me to this huge party? I'll introduce you to everyone. It's gonna be legendary." Now I'm the guy who likes to sit in the back at parties. I'm the one who prefers to be in a small group, avoiding the crowd. But I couldn't back out. I had to do this. Ryan would never let me live it down if I didn't. I followed this guy, unsure what kind of legendary party this would be. As it turns out, it was an underground rave. We're talking neon lights, loud music, and people who looked like they had just walked out of a 90s music video. I was standing in the middle of the dance floor, surrounded by people dancing like they were auditioning for Step Up 5 or something, while I awkwardly shifted from one foot to the other, trying to blend in. People were offering me glow sticks, shoving drinks into my hand, and telling me to feel the beat. But all I could feel was my crippling self-awareness. I spent the next few hours standing in a corner, trying to look like I wasn't completely out of place. At some point, I was literally shoved onto the stage to participate in the dance-off. It's a miracle I didn't pass out from sheer awkwardness. The whole thing was a blur of neon lights, weird dance moves, and people shouting, "You got this." I never thought I'd be the guy to not leave a party early, but I eventually made my escape at 4 a.m., looking like a shell of my former self. I was exhausted. I needed sleep, and I needed to make it stop. Day 27. The mental toll this experiment had on me was becoming unbearable. I was starting to look at the world like a ticking time bomb of random experiences I had to say yes to. Every time I left the house, I expected something outrageous to happen, and of course, it usually did. Today, something changed. For the first time since this entire nightmare began, I realized that maybe saying yes wasn't about the absurd experiences, the strangers, or the chaos. It was about something deeper. I had spent so long avoiding discomfort, shutting myself off from the world, pretending I was fine being an introvert, hiding in my bubble. But now I was facing every challenge head-on, whether I liked it or not. And yeah, it sucked. I hated every minute of it. But I also started to realize that I wasn't just saying yes for the bet anymore. I was saying yes because I was learning something about myself. That realization didn't make the next experience any easier, though. I walked into a laundromat later that day, and an elderly woman walked up to me, holding a jar of homemade jam. She asked me if I would help her sell it at the farmer's market. Now, if you'd asked me a week ago, I would have politely declined. But today, Today, I said yes. Next few hours were spent helping this sweet woman sell her jam. People would walk by, ask for samples, and I'd give them my best customer service face while trying to push jars of strawberry preserves on them. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't something I would have ever chosen for myself. Still, I couldn't help but admire the woman's enthusiasm. She was so genuinely happy selling her jam, and for the first time in days, I felt a small glimmer of positivity. Maybe there was something to this whole saying yes thing after all. But damn, I still couldn't wait for it to end. Day 30, final day. I could hardly believe it, but here we were, the final day of the bet. I had survived a month of chaos, embarrassment, and the kind of experiences that most people would have nightmares about. But here I was, still standing. And somehow I felt different. Not in a life-changing way, but in a I've seen the absolute weirdest stuff in my life kind of way. Ryan texted me in the morning. "You did it, man. Now go out with a bang. No backing out on the last day." What did he have in store for me? What could possibly top everything I'd already done? Turns out, it was a good old-fashioned public flash mob. He arranged for a random group of strangers to meet me in a park, where we'd all dance to some random pop song. I wasn't prepared. I didn't have the energy to dance, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I had the mental capacity left to process what was happening. But I didn't back out. I joined the flash mob, flailing my arms and trying not to trip over myself. And you know what? By the end of it, I was laughing. Sure, it was embarrassing as hell, but I had made it through. I had said yes to everything for a whole month, and somehow I was still in one piece. Ryan handed me the $3,000 at the end of it all. But honestly, after everything I'd been through, the money felt like nothing compared to the wild ride I had just endured. Would I do it again? Hell no, but did I learn something about myself? Maybe. Maybe life isn't just about avoiding discomfort. Maybe it's about embracing the absurdity when it comes your way. And for now, that was enough.